Good evening and welcome to the October 13th meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have those of you in the audience with us tonight, and we're glad to have those who are perhaps watching at home on television. At this time, I'm going to ask you to please stand as Angie Fairchild, who is our Supervisor of Special Education, will lead us in our pledge, followed then by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now a moment of silence. Thank you. Members of the board, you have seen a copy of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. Any question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you, and the motion carries. Before we get into communications, we have several guests tonight that I would like to recognize. A special guest with us tonight, and I'll start in no particular order, but Mr. Adam Tucker, our city attorney, is here tonight filling in for Ms. Taylor, who was not able to be with us. Adam, we're glad to have you with us tonight.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
We also have Representative Tim Rudd in the back, Representative Mike Sparks. We also have Councilman Ronnie Martin is with us, and we have some other guests that I will introduce to you as the program moves along. First item on our agenda is communications is a presentation, and this will be done by Dr. Dale Lynch, who is the Executive Director of TOSS, known as Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents, and he has been there since 2017. His prior positions included Director of Schools, Assistant Director of Schools, Curriculum and Instruction Director, and also a teacher. Dr. Lynch serves on various national and state boards. He was named Tennessee's Superintendent of the Year in 2014, and we are honored to have him tonight to present a presentation to Dr. Gilbert's family with the George Kip Reel Award in memory of Dr. Gilbert. And I would like for members of that family, if you will, please, to approach the podium with Dr. Lynch. And I think members of the family tonight, we have Linda's husband, Steve, children Braden Ross, Mackenzie Ross, and also Cherry Ross. It's all yours, Dr. Lynch.
May I begin? First, I want to say, in deciding on what I would share with you this evening, we had a nice ceremony planned out and a 2.5 to 3 page program that I was going to share in a speech that I was going to give about Linda. But I also know Linda, and I knew what Linda would do to me if I did such a thing. I want to say on behalf of the 145 superintendents in Tennessee, on behalf of our association, I want you to know something about her that maybe I was not able, or we were not able to share with this Board of Education. She loved you. I worked with Linda as a friend and a colleague and then became executive director. But I will tell you that there was not a day that went by that we were talking about public education that the Board of Education was not mentioned. She was appreciative and she was thankful for your leadership and your support. I want to say thank you for what you do for the boys and girls here by supporting your director of schools. That is so important, and so many school systems in Tennessee could learn from your leadership and your working together. So on behalf of our association, thank you for what you did for Linda, for Dr. Gilbert, and also what you continue to do for public education. Would the audience please join me in giving your Board of Education a round of applause, which you so richly deserve. I also want to to say that it wasn't long ago that I was able to be here with you in recognizing Dr. Gilbert as the Regional Superintendent of the Year. And I know that there's going to be several legislators who are going to come up and going to share some big gifts. And, you know, we have a very nice eagle, but don't you forget that nice, huge vase that you have. So when you add all of ours up from toss, it might be a little better than some of the others that are coming tonight. But Dr. Gilbert, when I came here to present the Regional Superintendent of the Year, she said, come on down here. She showed me where to park in the garage. Without Linda today, it took me 30 minutes to drive around here to try to find out how to get in. I feel the same way without her now. I'm lost, but I'm so thankful for her friendship and her leadership. I want to say, first of all, to her grandchildren, I want to say to you that she was a champion. She was a champion for boys and girls just like you. She gave everything that she had 110% of the time, and she loved you, and she talked about you all the time, and most of it was good. And Cherry, oh, how she was proud of you. The service and leadership that you continue to show, there's not I don't think there was a time that went by that I didn't learn something from her, but I really knew it was coming from you. So thank you for being that wise daughter. And Steve, I got to know you kind of, I guess, through our AASA trip. We rode on the same plane together. I can't even remember. I think it may be on the West Coast. Somewhere. But I will tell you, I told my wife Shannon, what a gentleman that you were and how you took care of her. But I think she made you take care of her, just like she took care of all of us. But the George Kiprill Award is a very, very special award in our association, named after a gentleman who was an executive director, a superintendent, but like Dr. Gilbert, a champion for Tennessee's children. And I want to say on behalf of our association and organization, this does go to the family. But I also want to say it goes to Murfreesboro City Schools too, because without you all and without the Gilbert family, you couldn't have done what you've done. And I want to say this, and Ralph, you gave me permission. Linda was always the smartest one in the room. There's never been a day in public education, and I've been in it for over 30-some years, and as a superintendent for almost 20, than the days that you've had under COVID. I know that as a board and as a superintendent. I think Dr. Gilbert may have left a little bit early, but I think she was the wisest one still. I want to say thank you on behalf of our association. We will always miss her, but she will always be with us. So Steve and family, on behalf of TOSS, Dr. Gilbert, the George Kiprill Award goes to your family. Thank you very much.
Can I take this off to talk, or do you want me to leave it on?
Tend to talk.
All right. I'll leave it on. That's fine.
Get off.
No, I was talking to Bill Shacklett tonight, and I guess Bill Shacklett and Butch and I probably have known Linda longer than anyone in this room, all the way back to elementary education. We went to school together well, Bill didn't, but Butch and I went to school together at Mitchell Nielsen. And Butch is a little older than I. But we went there, and I know when Linda and I were dating in high school, she talked about education. She talked about how much that's what she wanted to do. Now, Linda was very smart. She really was. She was smarter than what a lot of people knew. But she always wanted to be do education. She could have done anything she wanted. She was the kid in the class, if the teacher was going to make a curve, Linda made 98. I mean, that's just the way it was. But Linda's goal in life was to improve education for the kids, especially Murfreesboro, and she wanted to make some kind of an impact into their lives to help them if she could. And I guess this to me is just a validation of her life's work, the work that she was doing actually when she passed away. And so I guess I'll just end with saying that she was doing what her motto was, and that was changing the world one child at a time. So thank you.
Spit out just a little. There we go. That's good. Stay right there. You back up a little bit, buddy. There we go. Couple more. And we're good.
Yes, sir, thank you. Gilbert family, don't sit down yet. I am reminded, and I think I made a mistake a minute ago for Braden and Mackenzie. I think I introduced you as Linda's children, but actually you're the grandchildren, which makes it even more special that you're here. We now have Dr. Penny Swin, who is the Tennessee Commissioner of Education. She has been since February of 2019. Penny began her career in education as a high school history teacher and an economics teacher. She comes from a family of education and is committed to increasing access to an excellent education for all children. Dr. Swin has carried such titles as Chief Deputy Commissioner of Academics at the Texas Education Agency, along with Assistant Secretary of Education in the Delaware Department of Education. We are honored to have Dr. Penny Swin with us tonight. Welcome. Come forward, please, ma'am.
May I take this off, or would you
Yes,
prefer?
ma'am.
Okay. I apologize. I want to actually direct these to you and your family. I have been very lucky to be the commissioner for just over a year and a half, and I will say very personally that Dr. Gilbert got me through my first year. I remember meeting her. It was my first day of work, and it was the big superintendent of the year banquet was at the Hard Rock downtown, and so she was holding court, and everyone said, well, there's the superintendent, doctor. And I was nervous. It was my first day, and it was late. I think Dale will remember that. And I had been through a long day, and I said, it's nice to meet you. I'm new here, and she did the so nice to meet you. You're going to do a great job, and made me feel real good. And then a couple of weeks later, we had these superintendent study councils that get together, and we had it for the Mid-Cumberland region. And I had told the team, everyone sit at a different table. We can't all group together. Make sure you get to know people. And before the first question that came up, it was Dr. Gilbert, and she raised her hand. And she said, I just want to say thank you for listening. And that was the first of many lessons that she gave me in my time. And I think the thing that I keep in my purse, I keep a picture of my kids. I keep a picture of my parents, and I keep a letter that she wrote to me on my 1-year anniversary in this job. And the letter talked about her first impression, her second impression, her third impression, and the reason why this work is so important. And when I think about her and I think about the whole child work, when I think about her and her commitment to children, her commitment to people, her faith, the fact that anytime I needed counsel or help or support, I called her, and she picked up the phone every time, and she said, it's going to be all right. We're changing the world one day at a time. Good days, bad days, we're going to change the world. And it was a title that I take very seriously, to be one of those very special world changers in her eyes. And the fact that she meant so much to so many people. Please know that there's no way I could have gotten through this first year if it had not been for her. She was an angel on earth for me, and I think she has just blessed so many people in this state, and I'm just so grateful to have been a small part of that. But please know that she's been a massive part of the person I've become over the last year and a half to me and my family, and I'm just very grateful that I got to spend that little bit of time with her. Thank you very much for sharing her with so many folks. She made a big difference to all of us. And I just want to say to all of you, so apologies, I was not directing those comments your way, but very grateful to be here today. I think the work that you all continue to do in your district is incredible, and I think Dr. Gilbert is an exemplar of what we aspire to have for everybody. And so with that, I will read the proclamation. Oh, it's long. Here we go. Proclamation. Whereas we were greatly saddened to learn of the passing of Dr. Linda Arms Gilbert, and whereas the Director of Schools for Murfreesboro City Schools, Dr. Linda Gilbert, was an exemplary public servant and consummate professional who worked assiduously to improve the quality of life for her fellow citizens in numerous capacities. And whereas a highly respected and admired educator, Dr. Linda Gilbert was the 1998 Tennessee Teacher of the Year and the 2008 Tennessee Superintendent of the Year, fitting accolades for the positive impact she had on generations of students during her career. And whereas a visionary leader and stellar educator, Dr. Gilbert had served as Director of Schools for Murfreesboro City Schools since 2010, having begun her career with the school district as a general and instrumental music teacher at Black Fox Elementary School. And whereas, prior to accepting her job as Director of Schools, Dr. Linda Gilbert was an Associate Professor in the Educational Leadership Department of Middle Tennessee State University, MTSU, where she established the Middle Tennessee P16 Council, co-authored the MTeach grant to expand science and math teachers, and received the Tennessee Higher Education Commission Outstanding Public Service Award and the MTSU Outstanding Teacher Award. She was the university's first Scholarship of Teaching and Learning Fellow and the first recipient of the True Blue Citation Distinction of Education Award from the MTSU Alumni Association, and she was elected to the Band of Blue Hall of Fame. And whereas an active part of her community and her profession, Dr. Gilbert was a true champion for children and served on the State Educator Effectiveness Advisory Council, Rutherford Works Executive Council, Business Education Partnership Executive Board, Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Commission, Wellness Council of Rutherford County, Lipscomb's Heirs Leadership Fellows Advisory Council, Child Advocacy Center Board, Project Transformation, Red Cross Board, and United Way Board. And whereas no stranger to awards and accolades, Dr. Linda Gilbert received the Rutherford County NAACP Freedom Fund Humanitarian Award and the Read to Succeed's Karen Claude Award for Literacy in Rutherford County. She was named a TEA Distinguished Higher Education Professional and a Bradley Academy Museum and Cultural Center honoree for public service to youth. And she served as president of the Tennessee Association of School Supervision and Administration. And whereas a member of Murfreesboro Magazine's Women in Business Class of 2015, Dr. Gilbert received the 2019 Athena Leadership Award from Rutherford Cable, the Tennessee Trailblazer Award from the MTSU Chapter of American Association of University Women, the 2016 Child Advocacy Center Hometown Hero Award, and the 4-Star Individual Service Award from the Tennessee Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. And whereas she was a member of the Bethel United Methodist Church, which she served faithfully for more than 50 years as the organist. And whereas Dr. Gilbert was also deeply devoted to her family, and she always endeavored to remain true to family values of the highest order. And whereas she enjoyed the loving companionship of her husband, Steve Gilbert, and was the proud mother of Cherry Ross, an academic coach in Murfreesboro City Schools, and Brian Gilbert, a United Methodist minister in Princeton, Illinois. And whereas Dr. Linda Gilbert leaves behind an indelible legacy of integrity and probity in public life, compassion and loyalty in private life, and diligence and dedication in all her chosen endeavors. And whereas it is fitting that we should remember the bountiful life of this exceptional public servant and human being. Now therefore I, on behalf of Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the 111th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, at the request of and in conjunction with Representative Mike Stewart, do hereby proclaim that we honor the memory of Dr. Linda Arms Gilbert, reflecting fondly upon her impeccable character and her stalwart commitment to living the examined life with courage and conviction. Proclaimed in Nashville, Tennessee on this day, September 29th of 2020. Congratulations.
Nope, not time to sit down yet. Y'all don't rush me. We have one more presentation to make, and this was brought to us by Representative Charlie Baum, who represents District 37 in the House of Representatives and has been there since 2018. Mr. Baum has a PhD in economics and currently teaches economics at MTSU and has been since 1999. He has served on numerous boards in Rutherford County and was also a county commissioner for several years. We are honored to have Representative Baum with us tonight and his colleagues, Representative Tim Rudd and Mike Sparks. Representative Rudd, Baum, and Sparks.
On behalf of Senator Don White and Senator Shane Reeves, Representative Brian Terry, Representative Mike Sparks, Representative Tim Rudd, and myself, we'd like to present this resolution. It's a House joint resolution to the family of Dr. Linda Gilbert. It's a resolution honoring the memory of her great work for our school system and for children and for education. I had the opportunity of working with Dr. Gilbert in several ways, but two primary ones were first, government policy, where she stayed in regular contact with me and the rest of the Rutherford County delegation on policies that were best for education and best for our children. She was a clear communicator, she was persuasive, and we listened to what she had to say. And the second area in which I had the benefit of working with Dr. Gilbert was on the Murfreesboro City Schools Foundation, where Dr. Gilbert helped raise, over a period of years, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to be awarded to special projects to benefit children. These monies were above and beyond typical allocations through city council and city government and state government. These were funds that were raised privately in order to benefit students. Dr. Gilbert always had the best interests of students at heart. Mike, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, you know, sometimes serving the legislature, sometimes it's lonely, sometimes it's divisive, and sometimes it doesn't need to be that way. And one thing about Dr. Gilbert that I loved, she was a great communicator, and she just had a warm spirit about her. And she just connected. I just connected with her. I don't even have Murfreesboro City Schools in my district. I represent North Murfreesboro, but my assistant sent me this email a little while ago. But we had and it was really sweet. She sent us. But we had an opioid mental health town hall last year that many of y'all came to. She attended. Bill Spurlock attended. Craig Harris, Brian Terry, and others attended, and the late Steve Irvin, the commissioner that passed away. So sadly, we've seen a few leaders pass on. But one thing that a consensus that came out of that meeting was the need for more mental health and more social workers in our schools. And if I could, Chairman, if I could read that email.
Yes, sir.
And I wasn't going to read it, and then I thought, what would she do if she was here? Would she want me to read this? I think she'd want me to read it, you know. So if I could, it just says, "Good evening. I apologize for being so late in responding. Please thank Representative Sparks for reaching out. Yes, more funding for counselors would certainly help with the social emotional issues we're seeing. Another area is social workers. They are vital, and many school districts are not able to fund them. Also, think it would be helpful for him and other legislators to talk with school superintendents about the issues we're seeing in very young children. The behaviors of our 6 to 9-year-olds are like nothing we've ever seen before." Now, this is an expert saying this, and Commissioner Schwinn, I wanted her to hear this too. Let me just repeat what that was. "The behaviors of our 6 to 9-year-olds are like nothing we've ever seen before." That's coming from an expert right there. It's not just me saying it or school board members saying it. It's coming from her. They are inordinately disruptive and aggressive and while we're bringing all of our resources into play, there is no place for these children to go to be assessed and treated. I feel very good about the Department of Education, which is trying to accomplish this in the area and emphasis on the whole child. I'm hopeful that the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse will also work alongside them to help address the upper tier of children for whom there seem to be no answers. Thanks again, Linda. And we run that bill, which was with her help. We passed the bill. Sadly, the media doesn't cover it. I was sharing that with Walt Walker earlier. Nashville media doesn't cover it. It's a big issue. The media is a big part of solutions. They should talk about this, not divisive issues like they seem to talk about so much. But we got the bill. It's $6 million we passed. Sadly, due to COVID, sadly due to the funding, we weren't able to get it in the budget. But what I want to ask Mr. Lynch and Commissioner Schwinn and Ben Torres and David and Butch and others here to maybe send us a resolution next session, if I'm up there, if we're blessed to be sent back by our constituents, but pass a resolution so we bring more awareness to this. I don't mean to ramble, but I can tell you, she connected with me. I hope it's okay to say, Butch, I thought she was a sweetheart. Is that okay to say?
Yeah.
I thought she was a sweetheart. She's just a sweet lady, and she connected with us. She connected with me better than Chairman Campbell. When he calls me, he wears me out about stuff. Don't you, sir? He usually
You liked her because she's better looking than me, Mike.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir.
Very briefly, they didn't tell me I was going to be speaking, and I apologize for no jacket. I was at the Capitol today, and I rushed out to get here and realized my coat's still hanging on the back of my office door. But she was a very special lady, and she did communicate regularly, and not everybody in government communicates until they need something. And I often say the biggest failure of being in public service is we spend too much time reacting and not enough time acting and planning out for future. And as I pass legislation protecting teachers and educators from lawsuits and the Teacher Protection Act, and as I've passed other legislation and passed on the sponsor of the resolution ending testing, not making sure it applied when it was before Commissioner Swin straightened it out, she was sending me texts and calling me on a regular basis. I kind of bonded with her a little bit. There was one state meeting where Vanderbilt, and I was the only legislator there, and she came over and she wrote me a nice letter saying how much she appreciated that, and ever since then she communicated with me on give me advice and give me suggestions. And as many of you know, when we've had our joint county and city school board, I've always asked elected officials, give me suggestions on what you need done and tell me how that you want it done. And she did not fail in that. She did that on a regular basis, and she was much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm fine where I'm at. We're traffic people being from here.
I want to thank those of you that were here tonight as presenters. We were very glad to have you on what we should dub as Linda Gilbert Night. I think it is well deserved. Linda was a fabulous person. I'm going to take just a minute. Steve, I want to thank you and Braden and Mackenzie, the grandchildren, and also Cherry for being here with us. We invite you to come back anytime you want to, but unless you have something better to do. Thank you very much. We appreciate you And we appreciate you helping us with Linda, I guess. And we appreciate what Linda has done. Does any board member want to say anything?
My hand's up, Mr. Chairman.
I see it. All right, David, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So
You're welcome,
kindly.
sir.
I just want to say, when we learned of Linda's passing, I think that was one of the first this year, and it struck so hard to me personally. I'm speaking for me. And I will say that I came on school board 4 years ago, and Linda was the most welcoming director that I think I could have ever met. I wrote several notes down here, and everybody repeated clear communicator, and I know the subtext to that, which means that Linda kind of told you how it was going to be, and and that's how it went, right? Steve knows what I'm talking about. And I appreciated Linda for being a genuine leader. She made some hard decisions that a lot of people maybe didn't like, and it was okay, because what I always knew about Linda is that her main goal was these kids, and that's the reason that I ran for school board. So I'm grateful for her legacy. I'm thankful for the leader that she was and the leader that she continues to be through her work. I'm sure Ralph wouldn't mind us saying that he's able to do what he's been able to do because Linda laid such a good foundation and a roadmap. She was forward-thinking enough to know that what we were facing, which was the coronavirus, was not going to be a 2-week or 4-week or a month ordeal. And I'm grateful for her insight. And lastly, I'll say to Steve and to Sherry and to the grandkids, thank you for sharing Linda with us. I never got any of those cookies like I was supposed to get. And and the only other thing was, one year at the NAACP, it was either a breakfast or a dinner, I sang. And Linda said, oh, you have a beautiful voice. We're going to have to get together sometime, and, you'll sing and I'll play. I said, whenever you're ready. We didn't get to do it yet, but, I've got faith one day maybe we will. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you so, so much. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? All right, thank you very much. Again, the Gilbert family, we appreciate you being here, and keep in touch.
Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda, consent items. We have a motion to approve the consent items as printed.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Action items.
Yes, we have 3 board policies that need on first reading. First one is Board Policy 3.600, Insurance Management. The only addition would be line 14. The director of schools / designee shall develop procedures to ensure the privacy of HIPAA protected information. We recommend approval.
Oh, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move for approval.
All right, sir. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who's that?
Ms. Goff?
Ms. Goff, thank you. Any question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Ringstaff.
Thank you. The next board policy is 5.5001, Prevention of Abusive Workplace Conduct. This actually is a new policy. TSBA provided us this policy a little bit of time ago. And to be put in a nutshell, this is a policy for adult bullying. We've never had a policy on adult bullying before. So this is basically a policy to prevent adult bullying. And it lays out the steps to take when someone is getting treated, verbal abuse, physical conduct, threatening, intimidating, things like that. So we recommend approval of this board policy.
I move for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. We have a second.
So seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you.
Next policy is a complete rewrite, basically, of the child abuse and neglect policy, 6.409. This is a change in the law. this is going to require all school personnel to annually complete child abuse training, and it changes some of the aspects of the law. We are not to contact the parents, we're not to divulge any information to the parents of a child who may be being abused or neglected. We have to refer them to the law enforcement officials.
I mean, now repeat that, please, sir. I want to
Okay.
make sure I understand.
We are not to inform the parents of the child of any abuse, suspicions, neglect. We are to refer them to the law enforcement agency or the DCS. Also, we have to name a child abuse coordinator and an alternate child abuse coordinator. We're not to investigate the matter. We're there to listen to the child and not ask any questions. Just listen to the child, what they say, make the statements, and contact the proper authorities.
So this is abuse by an adult, correct? Not
Correct.
necessarily abuse from another student, like bullying or something. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay. Yes, Ms. Moore and then Mr. Settles?
Yes, thank you. I had spoken with Ms. Taylor and Mr. Tucker about this just a little bit. It's just a point I would like to raise, and maybe before, if this proceeds past tonight, we could learn a little bit more about it. So the last section of this policy is about investigations. And as you said, it's not for the school system to investigate. We turn that over to DCS, the agency that oversees these issues, to conduct interviews or whatever. And sometimes, according to this policy, those interviews may take place at school. What the policy says is the principal may control the time, place, and circumstances of the interview, but may not insist that a school employee be present, even if the suspected abuser is a school employee or another student. The principal is not in violation of any laws by failing to inform parents or guardians that the child is to be interviewed, even if the suspected abuser is not a member of the child's household. That makes sense to me. My question, though, was, as a parent, even if there's no violation of the law, if the principal does not inform parents that a child is being questioned or talked to at school by DCS, what would be the harm in us saying, if it's no one in the family, it's not a parent, no one that's suspected of the abuse, of telling the parent that the child is being interviewed at school? Even if we're not the ones doing the interviews, that the parents have sent the child into our care for the day, and if an adult is questioning them, as a parent, I would want to know that. And I understand if, someone in the family is the suspect, you can't do that, but if not, so it's just a question I had about what the reason would be for not including in our policy that we should contact parents if this is happening. And I don't know who's best able to answer that question, or if it's something we need to come back to on a second reading.
We can get further clarification and get back with you on this. This is, Chuck Cagle's the one that told us about it, the new law, so we can get further clarification. And Mr. Campbell, it's also, they can be abused by another student. In line 38 on the second page, it says that, states that.
Right.
So it can be a...
It's settled.
Thank you. A couple of questions, and I'm kind of with Ms. Moore. If the abuse is not parental or sibling related or something like that, this doesn't prohibit the principal from discussing it from the way that I'm reading it. It doesn't prohibit the principal from discussing it with the family. It just says that they are not obligated to, according to the law. So there's no prohibition in this. Is that correct? Am I reading it right?
That's the way I read it.
You are reading it correctly, in my
Okay.
opinion. But I don't think the intent is to inform the parents.
That would be difficult for me. Did this come straight from TSBA, the wording of this?
No, we got this from Chuck Cagle, the attorney that, he made the statement that we do not need to inform.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of difficulty with that. I'm just thinking, not that the abuse is coming from, say, I was the parent and I'm suspected of abuse, I would understand that you wouldn't divulge that to me. But we'd have a real issue, and I guess maybe by the law, I got the city attorney here looking at me really intently, and he's a parent as well. Amanda's a parent. Of course, we all are parents, I think, for the most part, we're all parents, but they more immediately, because my kids are out of school, but I do have grandchildren in the system. So I would be a little bit concerned if the principal did not say to me, I'm throwing this out, if the principal didn't say to me, we suspect that there was abuse on the playground to your grandson by another student, and we talked to him for 45 minutes, these are the people that were there, that would be a little difficult for me to swallow. So if it's not prohibitive, I want it to kind of be clarified. I don't want it to be a situation where they are bound by law not to discuss it, because I would have a whole other issue with that. That would be a whole other issue. The second question I had is, this particular policy, is this going to be included in the parental handbook? And the reason I ask that question is, if the parents are not going to be notified, how are they notified that they won't be notified? You follow what I'm saying? Because they may not know that there's an issue. And secondarily, if they find out secondhand, if my grandson comes home and says, hey, Papa, guess what happened today? I was, and they asked me this and that or the other, and I'm upset, and I storm to the school and say, you don't have a right to question my son, and then you say, oh, yes, we do, then we have a whole other problem. So that question has to do with notification to the parents that this is the policy. I'd like to know on the front end before the back end.
Okay. To answer to your first question, we will get clarifications on lines 38 through 40 on the second page. And we will make sure that this policy, when approved, is in our parent handbook.
Thank you. My last one has to do with the training, and I'm guessing it's going to be during in-service time, the summer in-service.
Actually, TSBA and a couple more organizations are trying to come up with some training, and we'll get that training as soon as it's available.
Thank you.
We're not going to wait on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Richardson and then Ms. Barton.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This will be directed at council. The definitions of abuse and neglect that are in this proposed piece of legislation, as it were, does that follow TCA 37-1-102 exclusively, or are there further definitions?
Try to see the footnote here. It looks like I have not gone back and checked that, and I think that's an answer that can be brought back at second reading. But based just in looking at the footnotes here, it seems to be taken directly from Tennessee Code definitions of what constitutes abuse, sexual abuse.
And therefore would be governed by that statute in that chapter?
Yes, sir.
And this will go to Mr. Ring's staff. What are the qualifications that are recommended for the child abuse coordinator?
We're thinking of a school counselor because they would need a private office and phone availability, and possibly the alternate could be an assistant principal.
We just heard from Representative Sparks about the great need for social workers in our school system. Is that something that's been discussed or thought of?
We have several social workers, but sometimes they have 2 or 3 schools.
Could a dedicated social worker make this a better piece of legislation?
Yes, sir.
Very well. Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Barton?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that based on my experience, unfortunately, 2 different times when the parent or the family was involved, they unknowingly talked to the abuser or mentioned the fact that the child something had happened at school. Even more unfortunately, in one of those situations, the abuser started to threaten the child, which totally messed up the investigation. And I think that even though I see as a parent why you would not want that to happen, I've been on the other side too many times, and it is so important that the investigation be done by law enforcement, not by us, not by parents asking questions. Law enforcement has to do it if you really want to be able to punish the person that's done something wrong. So I guess I have to go from the other perspective as well.
Okay. Ms. Goff?
Well, I was just going to add, having worked with DCS, DCS is obligated to report that they have been to school to talk to parents, so that may be where the principal is relieved of that responsibility. I'm just saying, but they are obligated within a certain time
You said DCS is obligated to do what?
to notify the parents that they have been to school and spoken with their child.
Okay. But
And
but
follow.
they don't have to notify the school about what they're talking about?
No,
I guess they didn't used to. I don't know whether that's changed or not.
I don't think.
So in other words, Adam, you could be the DCS rep and you could come in and talk to me as a student, but you don't have to tell anybody there at the school why you're there.
Well, I think it would be kind of obvious why I'm there, but I do not have to go into the specifics of the investigation or who is, or who might be the perpetrator or perpetrators in any specific situation.
Well, I think, I agree with you. It'd be obvious of why they're there. However, and unless I'm wrong, and it may have changed, Roseanne was in it, you were in it shorter period of time away than I was, but when they used to come in, they say, I want to see John Brown, and that's it. You don't know why they're seeing John Brown, or you don't know what happened after the conversation with John Brown.
That's correct. And
Which I didn't
and I think it's important to draw a distinction here with respect to the individual rights, constitutional rights that are in play here. This is not a situation where the student is a suspect. This is a situation which brings in certain constitutional rights for the protection of the individual child, and in which case where there will be parental notification requirements. This is a situation where imposed on the school. This is a situation where the child is a potential victim. And so the Supreme Court the United States Supreme Court has recognized that the protection of children is of paramount interest and can under certain circumstances justify this type of investigation even without the consent of the parents. So that distinction between victim versus suspect is very important here. And then also that there is, as Ms. Goff pointed out, and I suspected, although I was not certain of it, I had not gotten that far into the legislation or the regulations, that the duty to notify parents is placed on the investigating agency. DCS, the law enforcement, are investigating this as a potential criminal violation, and the obligation is on them to inform parents to the extent that they need to know. And I think Ms. Barton's comments as well are. I've been on the other end of some of those conversations, and they're very delicate situations, and it's one where DCS and law enforcement take their jobs very seriously, and it's easier to have, one point of contact with the family on this particular matter, so you don't have people crossing signals.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you all so much. That's answered a lot of my questions that this raised for me. So thank you, Ms. Barton and Ms. Goff, especially for pointing out what could go wrong, as Ms. Barton pointed out. And then also, thank you, Ms. Goff, for letting us know that parents are notified. And if it's DCS doing it, that's actually better, because that's one less thing our schools have to be responsible for. So that's eased my concerns a lot. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ballard?
In this case, I know we get our direction on policies from TSBA, and they do the revisions and submit it to us for adoption. I take it that's the case here. This is all TSBA research and verbiage and legal reviews and such.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do we have, I know in the past when we've had trouble with some policy agreements, we make changes, but do we have to resubmit that, or is that, how do we work that with TSBA? Do we have the authority with our agreement with them to change any policy they give us?
As long as it adheres to the law.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, I feel somewhat better knowing that they have given it their review and blessing when they pass it to us. So,
All right, now remember, this policy is to us on first reading.
Correct.
So do we have a motion to approve the policy as written on first reading?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
I move for approval.
All right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Settles. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any other question or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
And Mr. Richardson opposes, okay? All right, thank you very much. Next policy.
That was,
That's all for policies. Now we're on reports and
I'm
information.
sorry, you're right, okay, all right. Reports and information, farm to school presentation.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. Let me get this pulled up, okay? Okay. So I get to talk to you tonight because October is National Farm to School Month. And I just want to give a little bit of shout out for where we started and where we're going. We did begin Farm to School with a planning grant in 2014. And we continue to grow it through a USDA grant. We have our farmers here with us, and I'm going to introduce them to you in just a second. So this began in coordination with our coordinated school health, our nutrition services, our communications office, and our advisory council back in 2014. It's really nice to say that all of us are still working together. Marilee Smith was instrumental in pulling this together, and she's moved to Georgia, so Darla has absolutely stepped up in her place. So again, it's a combination of a lot of departments, principals, teachers coming together, and we appreciate that. And our advisory council, which is made up from a lot of our local farmers as well as Farm Credit, the Farm Bureau Association, MTSU, we've just been blessed with a lot of people helping us and leading us through this process. Our vision initially was to have greenhouses or raised beds at every school, to create a student curriculum, to procure locally grown food. We also wanted our food to go from the garden straight to the cafeteria. We wanted farmer educators working with our students and working in our gardens, and we wanted to be able to tell the story of where our food comes from. What we found was a lot of our students just didn't know that. They just did not know what came out of a garden. They thought it came from Kroger or wherever it comes from. We did a lot. We have done a lot of menu planning, and you'll see that we've kind of moved our program from under coordinated school health to our nutrition department, because that's what our ultimate goal was, is to get that food from that garden into the bellies of our students. So we have really worked at producing seasonal crops as well as extending our crops through the greenhouses. We've worked on harvesting, and we had a farmer meeting last week, and we really talked about that harvesting where, okay, we need to know what's on the menu. We being the farmers, not me. They need to know what's on the menu so they know when to harvest that vegetable so it's as fresh as possible for the children and the adults to enjoy. We have learned a few lessons, and again, when I say we, I mean this entire team of individuals. We don't like eggplants. They're pretty, but we can't figure out what to do with them, so they're going to go off. We won't see very many eggplants growing anymore. However, and then I'll go ahead and say beans and peas, we're just going to have a little bit more garden space before we can produce enough to make a big hit with that. They're not off the menu yet, but they are certainly, we've got to find a larger lot to grow. The other thing I thought we've talked about, students are liking these cabbages. We are eating a lot of coleslaw and a lot of stewed cabbage. Not one of the things that I would have guessed, but that's what's happening. And radishes, they think they're yummy. So hey, it's introducing them to vegetables that wouldn't necessarily be on their dinner table. The farmers are going to focus on increasing the supply of broccoli, carrots, onions, spinach, those things that we can grow in the greenhouse or start in the greenhouse and grow so that we have a lot to harvest. We also concentrate on food safety. Again, one of the things putting it in nutrition, we've got to be able to grow it, we have to pick it, but we have to actually follow guidelines with that. So all of our nutrition team knows those state guidelines. They follow the GAP protocols. They follow the standard operating procedures. And we continue to train all of our key players, which a lot of those are our dietary team, of how to get it from once we pick it, how do we get it to where it needs to be. Our farmers, and I'm going to get them to come up in just a second so you can ask them the questions. Carrie Chestnut, Gabby Jones, and Molly Royer. They are in our schools all the time. Molly, I think I just blurred your name there. Sorry about that. And these are a few photos of them. You can see as you look at this on your left, that is, I think that's Carrie. Yeah, Carrie in the hat. And working with our students. So you see the students are still out there in the gardens, and we just love what they're doing with that. In the middle, you'll see Gabby and Carrie actually planting the seeds that go into the greenhouse or under the grow lights. Molly, with all of it's been just amazing watching these gardens grow, and I think she's sitting in front of a bunch of cabbage right now, maybe broccoli. Well, it says broccoli, so it is broccoli. And then a great picture of Gabby as well. Our school gardening today, as it stands, we have 24 total tower gardens. They're all of our schools. We have greenhouses at 10 of our schools. We do not have a greenhouse at Bradley because we don't have the space to have that. So Bradley is where we're really having to focus on those hydroponic towers just because of the space around there. And then we have raised beds all over. In the background of here, you'll see one of the pollinator gardens. So not only are they growing the vegetables, they're growing the pollinators to keep those vegetables going. And then that is a hydroponic tower full of greens there. Our farmers have literally, they've figured it up, harvested a ton of food since January of 2020. Wow. Even in the midst of COVID, we have harvested over 2,000 pounds of lettuce that doesn't weigh a whole lot. Let me just go ahead and say that. Lettuce does not weigh a potatoes, tomatoes, cabbage. I think at one time, Carrie harvested 183 pounds of cabbage in one day. So cabbage does give us a little bit of weight there. Eggplant, radishes, kohlrabi, squash, cucumbers, you name it, they are pulling it together. And we are so proud of what they're choosing and harvesting. You can see this is our grow rooms, from grow room to the greenhouse, if that's appropriate. Sometimes it's from the grow room to the garden. And again, lots of harvest. I want you to look in your top right-hand corner, and you will see bagged lettuce. That is mixed greens with tomato tomatoes that was served on our chow bus during COVID. So this is one of the things that they had as a side item during when we were serving off of our chow bus. So we didn't let it go to waste, even when the kids weren't in our schools. You also see sweet potatoes there, lots of cabbage, tomatoes, and then one of our gardens, and I think that is the garden that is at Hobgood that's being featured there. We also use Farm to School with outreach. We do farm field trips, which you know most of you probably, or some of you have been to MTSU with us. It is an amazing field trips. We do Junior Chef, and that's part of Farm to School. The Tennessee Crunch, which is coming up later on in October, we've been doing that. Tennessee Crunch and Southeast Crunch for 5 years now. I believe it's 5. We do taste testing, and that's how we know if children like radishes or any of the kohlrabi, which I have to say, I had never tasted before this. And then we were doing Farm Saturdays. A few of these things we can't do right now, but we will pick these back up. And Farm Saturdays was a time for the families to come and understand what we were doing and to be a part and to take plants home. So we have been telling our story. We are very excited that we're in this phase, that we're actually gone from planning, 6 years ago to actually harvesting with these great educators. So I want to make sure Sandy Shealy, actually the farmers come under the nutrition team now. So Sandy and Carrie and Molly and Gabby, come on up. I want you to see these ladies, kind of masked ladies. You'll see them in the gardens, but typically they're outside, so you don't get to see them. So I just want to say to you that I have been so impressed with what they are harvesting. And Sandy, do you want to bring anything? Or if y'all have any questions about Farm to School, you've got the right people.
What responsibility does each individual school have toward the gardens and the greenhouse and the program?
The school themselves or the farmers?
The school itself.
Well, as of right now with the COVID, everything is switched over to strictly the farmers. Prior to COVID, they were bringing the children out and having them help them do some weeding, some planting, showing them how to water, how to harvest. But as of right now, we've minimized that a little bit. They do come out, classrooms, they can tell them more than I can, but the classrooms do come out still, and they show them and talk to them about the gardens.
I wanted to ask a question because I was a little upset about something. What is the hate on the eggplant? What's that all about? I like eggplant. I was getting really concerned because eggplant is a big hit at our house. So, y'all got any of that eggplant left? Y'all got any? I don't live far from Reed's Rogers. I know it is. Yeah, because.
It's really not a hate of the eggplant. It's that we can't produce enough.
Oh, you can't produce enough. Okay.
For them to have.
For it to, okay.
Rolls.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, eggplant parmesan, eggplant. Eggplant is a very versatile if you do keto. So there's an angle there. Yeah.
Send a lot of that of the eggplant home with students in the summer.
I know.
And so that was
I'm old.
a really fun thing because
They
it
don't
was
want it.
actually a vegetable that a lot of students had not seen before. And so because we weren't producing, and the cafeterias didn't quite know how to handle the eggplant either, so that's kind of an interesting process of this, but the kids were really happy to take it home. So, and then we did a food giveaway at Hopgood in August as well, and I think during that time we sent probably, I would say, 150 pounds of food, and a lot of that was eggplant that went home. And a lot of the parents were really happy to get that.
I'm coming to Reeves Rogers on Thursday, and I want some eggplant and some squash or zucchini if there is any. No more. At Discovery, I got to go to. Okay, so I'm doing my little grocery run. I'll be at Reeves Rogers first, then I'm going to Discovery for some good squash. Makes the best squash casserole. Thank you guys. I think y'all are wonderful.
I just want to let you put a little face. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby.
And Molly. And these ladies are absolutely amazing.
Yes, they are.
When I first started the search for farmers, I thought when we put the job out there, posted, that I would be bombarded by men. I know, I'm sorry, but that's just what you think, especially when I go to these conferences. And I had about 10 women and one man. One man.
These guys are good.
And these three ladies, shining stars. I mean, we are truly blessed to have them, and they love the kids, and the kids love them.
Love it.
I was talking to some kindergartners the other day, and at the end of the thing, one of the kids said, "She's a girl." I thought all farmers were men. So there you go. Any listening?
I love that.
On that note, I would just like to say how much this program touches so many kids' lives.
Yeah.
Just by a kid coming up to you and asking, well, how does this grow? And you can sit there and talk to them about it, and they eat it up. They love it. So it has been such a joy to watch kids get so excited about vegetables and growing things around. And one of my schools, a little group of kids had started a nature club because they saw me out there and were so excited about it that they were out there. They had little things every day, and they'd come up to me and say, what are we doing about plants today? What are we learning today?
I love that.
And so that is amazing to
I
me.
love that.
So,
Thank
what a
you.
great program.
And we were blessed to be able to steal Gabby from Opryland. She worked at Opryland. She was over the greenhouse.
Good steal, good steal.
So, yes, we were blessed to be able to get her. So,
Thank you, ladies, very much. Appreciate your report.
Thank you.
We have an update on our next phase opening. Mr. Ringstaff?
Thank you. On August the 10th, because of conditions, we opened up with fewer children than we had intended. We gave pre-K through second grade in person. If third through sixth grade needed childcare or didn't have internet access, we allowed them to come to school. So we had 55% of our students coming into our buildings on August 10th. Because of conditions improving, as of September the 28th, we went from 55% in person to 80% in person district-wide. It was great to see on the first day, on September 28th, parents taking pictures of their children going into the school like it was the first day of school. And it was the first day of in-person school for them. But instead of hearing me talk more about it, I would like to ask our two principals who are in attendance, Maria Johnson and Ms. Emily Spencer, to come up and say a few words about how it is at their school, the new phase.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're just thrilled that we have so many students back in the building. Even though you're wearing masks, I think the most difficult part has been you couldn't give them a hug and them see your smile. I guess the new smile is the squint in your eyes for them to know your excitement that they're there. But at Scales, we have 75% of our students back in the building, which has been great. Mr. Ringstaff initially met with administration, our head of our food department, our transportation, as well as the other programs within the district, and we laid out a plan for return for students. In that, we looked at busing, how that would work for our students, food services, administration, and we contacted each student that was a distance learner for the first 9 weeks of school. We let them know if they chose to continue to be a distance learner, the expectations, and that their contract was approved. If they chose to come back to the schools, we welcomed them back through an email, introduced them to their new teachers, and then the teachers sent out their class dojo welcoming them back to the school. So it's been a extremely positive experience for students, and we're just happy to have them back in the buildings.
Cool.
Good evening. I can just mirror what Ms. Johnson said. I do want to add that I just want to say thank you to the board for having faith in us, to get the schools open, to do what was right for children, and to bring them back. They are so happy to be back in school. We have had not one single discipline problem at Irma Siegel regarding a mask, not one. They are just truly happy to be there. And today we are at 92% back at Siegel. So we are just thrilled, and I am obviously team bring them back. They are where they need to be. So thank you for having faith in us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, is that all the updates you got, sir?
Well, under other business, I would like to introduce someone.
All right, sir, go ahead.
I would like to introduce our new finance director, Michael Smith. Would you come to the podium, please? Mr. Smith comes to us from the state of Tennessee. During his college days, he actually audited school budgets as part of his job with our current auditor group, a company.
Yeah.
Then he went to the state and became a legislative auditor, where I think you still did school audits.
Yes, I did. I worked in a local government audit group, so we audited everything from Rutherford County Board of Education to the, all the way to the sheriff's office to the county government. So.
And then he became the investigator for the Tennessee Comptroller's Office, Treasury Office. So if you would like to ask him any questions, or I sent all of you his resume this afternoon, I believe.
We're glad to have you. As an investigator, we know that you know what's what, don't you?
I hope so.
And you'll keep us out of trouble.
That's the plan.
Thank you very much. We're glad to have you with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, Mr. Ballard?
Back on these numbers for the school, return to school are just great. I'm just tickled to death with that. And I think that's going to continue to grow. So that leads to, that's my question. The next, I guess, threshold for return to school is going to be after winter break?
Winter break, yes, sir, the next one.
So you,
I'm a little nervous about getting more students in winter break because you have the flu, what we call it, the flu and the COVID.
yeah.
But I hope more and more continue to come back.
Well, I think it's great, and that just speaks to what you and your staff has done to make it comfortable for parents to return their children to school. So,
Thank you.
I think this is a model for other schools to follow.
We're pleased right now.
I have a question.
I did a quick calculation, and it's about 81% return. Is that about what you figured?
Yes, sir.
Taking them all in, that's great, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Amanda?
Oh, it's okay. I just had a couple questions. I wondered about the distance learners. So we still have 19 or 20% of kids doing distance. So what has the transition been for them? Did a lot of kids have to change teachers, or has that been a smooth transition as well?
It was a smooth transition. Some did have to change teachers, but there was only very few. If we had a hybrid teacher that went totally virtual, those hybrid had to change. But we tried to get our best teachers to teaching virtual to continue teaching that, because it's going to be more difficult for the virtual learners to learn as much. So,
Mr. Settle?
Thank you. I know we had a net gain and we're up, and I'm so thrilled about this. But do we have any kids that started in person that wanted to go virtual?
at one of our schools, the week before the deadline, they had 2 positive cases.
Wow.
And before then, they were all single digits in every grade level. After that, it went to double digits. So, yes, some students and parents got a little fearful, and that's understandable. But we hope to get them back at Christmas.
I think I want to echo what Amanda said. I think it's been a model job that's being done. I'm highly complimentary of our school district. People ask questions that had to do with teachers and how they're coping with it, and I tried to explain as best I could that it is difficult, but the understanding that we have to have is, like I've told my grandson a couple of times, because he gets frustrated, and what we've had to explain to him is, it's new for the teachers, it's new for you, nobody really is an expert at this, so it takes some time. So I have a deep appreciation for that, and for all of the headaches that I know you've endured, and all of the email updates. I'm very, very, very grateful for that, because it gives us such confidence to know. And I'm looking at other school districts. I hate to pull them up, but Metro Nashville they're in a battle right now, quite frankly, to put it mildly. They're in a battle right now between teachers and parents as far as getting those schools open. And I think we've had a really good transition one way or the other. And unfortunately, coronavirus looks like it's going to be here for a minute, and we just got to learn to live with it. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the hard work that you guys are putting into it. And I don't want anybody to think it's unnoticed, because it is definitely noticed. Thank you.
Ms. Barton?
To piggyback a little bit on the Metro situation, again, praise for you and our administration and teachers. I heard this morning they've got 600 children that are distance learners that have yet to log on for a class.
Wow.
And they don't even know how many children are not enrolled that should be. So I say, again, thank you. I know it's been really, really hard, and you haven't gotten a lot of the credit that you should get, but we're really doing a good job.
I think that would almost, you could go back and say that does not prove that bigger is always better.
Right.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Mr. Ringstaff, first and foremost, I want to thank you for your leadership through this, and more importantly, your heart for this, your heart for our system and our children. My question is this: do we know what percentage of hybrid students are in the system now?
No, but I can find that out tomorrow. But I've left that up to the principals. Most principals went either in-person, traditional, or virtual, but we do have some schools that chosen hybrid, to stick with the hybrid plan, and some of the grade levels. But I'll get that answer for you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You'll send that to everybody then?
Yes, sir.
All right, anything else come before the board tonight?
I did want to say one thing. I'm sorry. Butch has a full schedule tomorrow. He's retired and everything, so you know he's really busy. I want to say thank you to Becky for the hard work that you put into honoring Dr. Gilbert. I'm very, very appreciative, and thank you for taking that taking that mantle on and making sure that she was honored tonight. And I think that it was a very fitting tribute to her work and contribution to Murfreesboro City Schools and Murfreesboro as a whole. That was it, Mr. Chairman.
You did very well, Mr. Sexton.
Thank you, sir.
Now, anything else before this board?
Nothing further.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.